Um, Thank you. And recording was requested because some folks really wanted to hear today's topic but couldn't attend. We hope you'll be able to block a little time on your calendar every month to join us. I'll introduce myself briefly and then my colleagues. My name is Robin DeFalco. I'm with the Community Development Office at Division of Local Government in DOLA. And as I said, this is our first in a new monthly series that will take place on the third Thursday of each month at 9 a.m. Today's topic again is software solutions for expedited review. But before we get into our main topic, we wanted to take a few minutes to just introduce the series in general. And so I'll move to our next slide. So we will have about 45 minutes for our main topic today. So I'll just take a little bit of time on the intro. And then at the end, we want to get some feedback from all of you on the topics you'd like to hear in future sessions. All right. So again, I'm Robin DeFalco. I'm the program manager for the Local Planning Capacity Grant Program. And I wanted to introduce my colleagues who are helping me coordinate this series. I'll hand it over to Mitch.
Hi, everyone. I'm familiar with some of you from the 1271 program. I am a housing and land use planning manager with the CDO office within DOLA, and I'll pass it off to Lisa.
Good morning. My name is Lisa LaRanger, and I'm the program manager for the Strong Communities program. We have two grant programs we're running, one for infrastructure construction and another for planning grants to help communities implement land use strategies. And we have a whole lot of information about various land use strategies on our website if you're interested. Thank you.
Thanks, both of you. And because our office has been administering these three grant programs, we've had the opportunity to hear and see all the great successes and challenges that communities across Colorado are facing, trying to address affordable housing issues through land use and planning strategies. There's so much great work happening. There are some, I think, 160 communities between our three grant programs. And we have the benefit of hearing what you're all doing, but we thought it would be valuable if you could all hear from each other and exchange lessons learned, successes, and even the challenges, which are sometimes the most helpful to learn from. So we've been wanting to create this series for a while, and we're really excited to kick it off this month. We'll feature different topics each month, and those topics will be informed by what you say you're interested in. When you all registered for the series, we asked what topics you were interested in, and we will try and give you a chance to vote up those topics and identify which communities across Colorado can speak to those topics. And hopefully we'll just keep it going, and it will be a valuable opportunity for all of you to share with each other. So I wanted to just pause for a moment and open it up to the floor. If anyone has any thoughts about what you'd like to get out of this series, if we could just take a couple minutes, you're welcome to raise your hand, come off mute, or share thoughts in the chat. What would make this a valuable hour of your day coming together as communities, or share topics in the chat that you would like to see? All right, we're going to hold a little more time at the end for this, so keep those ideas coming. MJ, go ahead.
I think this is a great idea. I really appreciate it. As you might know, I'm new to Colorado, so this housing peer exchange sounds like a great opportunity to share successes and challenges, and especially since we're all in this new learning environment, and especially as some of us who have been working in the housing realm start needing to interact more significantly with the planners who are actually doing the development reviews. I think that this is a great place to figure out how we do that successfully and how we can help each other be successful in creating this affordable housing need that we have.
Great. Thank you all. Any other thoughts or comments before we open it up? We do really want to hear from you today, so I wanted to give space for that.
In the chat, Sarah Tober from La Plata stated that they're hoping to bring back some solutions back to their government partners in the county. So when we have a poll at the end of this session, you'll be able to kind of chime in on what specific solutions you might be interested, so we can start setting up future sessions to speak directly to that.
Great. And one more thing I wanted to share before we get started is that today's session is partly is featuring several new grant awardees from our local planning capacity grant, which is Prop 123 funding. And I just wanted to announce that the second funding cycle is open now through June 3rd. If you're interested, please reach out to me to apply. I will paste the program link in the chat. And also, this is related to the Prop 123 requirement to implement a system to expedite review of affordable housing by the end of 2026. So this grant funding helps support that. Also, DOLA recently published guidelines on what that rule requires and how communities can implement expedited review processes. So that information is all at that Prop 123 Fast Track website link that I just pasted in the chat. So brief announcements, just wanted to share that. And now,
Real quick, Robin,
yeah.
we had one more hand up from Janine. I wanted to let
right.
Janine chime in before we get started.
Yes, please go ahead, Janine.
Thank you. And Robin, thanks for taking the time to talk to us yesterday. The second bullet on the previous slide, we're very interested in that because we're starting to look at our zoning code to see what additionally we can do for not just affordable, but attainable housing. So smaller lots, in addition to the expedited review process. So excited to learn more on what other jurisdictions are doing.
Great, thank you. Well, folks, please continue to chime in with your thoughts and ideas, and especially at the end. I would now like to hand it over to our featured speakers today, so we get to hear all about their successes and challenges with different software platforms. So without further ado, I'll introduce Carl Onsiger from the City of Golden, or really allow him to introduce himself. And Carl, I will stop sharing my screen so that you are able to share yours.
Perfect. All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Carl Onsager. I am the current planning supervisor with the City of Golden. I cut my teeth in development review with the City of Littleton, and kicking things off today because I graduated with a dual degree in Master's in Urban and Regional Planning, but also Master's in Public Administration. My capstone was an analysis of development review software and how implementation can succeed, specifically through the use of change management and process improvement. My presentation will focus primarily on that development review software, although other key components in that software package might be things like Adobe Pro or Bluebeam or some other software that allows for better markups, red lines, so we're not giving back paper copies back to the applicants, and hopefully no more getting paper copies from our applicants to begin with. So with that, I would say, first and foremost, development review software is at its core a database. It's similar to GIS, where GIS is just a database with a geospatial component. Development review software is often a case management, but ultimately it's that database component that facilitates these other functions that we need to make sure that our tasks are being done and being held accountable. And I will say, first and foremost, this is not a silver bullet. If you are hoping that just one piece of software is the last piece that will solve everything, I hate to tell you, software will not save us. So with that, as everyone moves with their implementation, I think it's good to keep expectations of what success looks like in mind. And in kind of the studies and the analysis, there's 3 types of, what we might frame negatively as failure, or success, near success, and pretty far from success. So near total failure is when implementation stalls out. There's no go live. You started, things just didn't work out. And these things happen in any sort of project management, project implementation, or that there's key stakeholders that just refuse to utilize the software at all. You have applicants who continue to just bring in paper applications. You have planners who don't want to utilize that software or engage with it, or maybe leave because of it. Partial failure, this is where, the design is not fully utilized to intent. So you built this process out and a software that is intended to implement that process, and yet there's heavy cleanup. Oh, wow, that one part of the review or this thing that we thought was going to work didn't. It's hard to get documents. It's hard to download. There's other pieces that, it's working, but it's still a slog to try and utilize that fully. And then success is that, hey, features are being used as intended. Your reports are working. The, data is going in clean and coming out clean. Because as we all know, with database management, junk in, junk out. But there's minimal cleanup. There's always going to be a little cleanup. There's no ever, oh, wow, this is going to work perfectly forever. But that's what success looks like. So with that, how do we get to that successful outcome? And, again, the studies, the data show process improvement does a huge step in this. Software is only as good often as the processes you have for it. So, based on your current processes, your pain points. Measure what's working. Measure what's not. Where are those pain points? Identify those early, and ideally before you start your implementation with a vendor or whatnot, and measure what's important. So keep in mind the things that, if you are having a hard time tracking development timelines, application, from intake to this step, it's hard to measure. Well, if it's hard to measure today and you don't have that in mind, you might not configure your software to make that easy to measure and report in the future. Discuss with people. Don't keep all of your great ideas in your head. Talk with your teams. Plan and map out that process. It's good if you have a process improvement software like Visio where you can really map things out, but sticky notes on a whiteboard. Like, okay, this is how I think this works. Map that out, get it down on paper. And then identify areas of improvement. Wow, that ability to get comments back to that applicant after we route things to our development review team, getting comments back from, let's say our fire departments. That's just a real sticking point. Identify those and see how you can work on specific steps to make that process better. And then reconvene, get buy-in with your team. Say, hey, this is what we heard. This is what we think is going to work, and get that thumbs up. And that brings to another piece, and these can run in tandem with change management. So what is change management? It is managing expectations and communication with key stakeholders and your team. Change management and effective change management can increase that success outcome by 60 to 70%. And failure to utilize change management increases those that failure rate substantially as well. So kind of go forward without engaging people and engaging in those change management practices at your risk. So there are books out there, there's trainings, there's classes, and in a lot of ways, so much of that is intuitive in how we even deal with the public, with the changes in our communities. It is communication, it is expecting resistance. So, the first, don't go this alone, get a sponsor. A sponsor is generally best from the executive side of things. That might be a city manager, that might be a town manager, that might be your town board, to say, we are doing this, we support staff. There's going to be troubles and there's going to be bumps along the way, but please support staff as you go forward. Expect resistance from everybody. Just that's a natural reaction to change. And just plan for that you're going to have staff that they've been doing something for maybe a very long time, or they're bringing in, well, we did this thing at my last job and we're not doing it here. And why? Just expect that and, be prepared for it, and also address people where they're at. We are all doing this because we know to get to that grant funding, to get to the affordable housing, this is a key piece of our roles. And yet for the people who are engaging with that software, be it the developers, be it the applicants, be it your own staff, what's in it for me is their perspective. How is this, making my life better? Well, if you check these boxes and complete these reviews in this date, and you make sure you're using the software as intended, well, then it makes sure that I don't have to come back and bug you about these things ongoing. So what's in it for me? Well, sometimes it's, good for the goose, good for the gander. Communicate and communicate some more. You can talk with people and say, hey, we're unrolling this new software. Say that 7 more times, because that's the number that it takes to stick when we talk about the change. And talk about the steps that it's going to get there. So that way, when you go live and say, hey, this is happening, or it has happened, no one's, going, what? And then collaborate. Make your haters your allies. And those can be the ones that, they're going to be the stickiest one. They're going to be your hardest. If you can get them on board, that does so much work for you. The ones that can cause the most trouble, if you can make them your ally, oh boy, you are going well. So in my own career, I helped implement eTrackIt when I was at Littleton. And now that I'm at City of Golden, we are utilizing Acela and, using a vendor to make improvements. And I think these are some key things to keep in mind as you are either shopping for software or as you're moving forward. There's always going to be maintenance with these things. Are you maintaining a Pinto? Or are you maintaining a BMW? That depends on kind of the software package that you might be evaluating. Are you going to need an ongoing vendor contract? Or is there a system that maybe has a little bit more in-house configuration? For Acela, I will be honest, one of my frustrations with it is that, I know enough about coding to be dangerous, but I can't do it myself. I have no idea how to write a crystal report or even to ask the questions to get there. That was much easier in eTrackIt, and, OpenGov might be another thing. So be aware of, where those, that ongoing support might be. GIS support. These things, usually you're tied to, maybe your assessor parcel numbers. There's, sometimes you organize these things around, addresses. Keep in mind that geospatial component. Do you have internal IT support? Also get them on board early, because there's going to be little things that pop up, like there's security protocols that, well, that should be a standard request. And you don't want your project to be delayed because, oh, wow, now IT needs to get involved to make sure that their access or their system meets your city's security protocols. Configuration versus code writing, is it SQL? Is it crystal reports? And then custom screens, just be aware, those are always going to be a fun thing. It allows for a lot of customization for your own process. At the same time, again, the more fields you have in a database, the more data risk you might have. And also, I'll just say, if I haven't said it before, those who work with crystal reports, they're meant to be pretty, not functional. Can you get your data or other things that you need out of those? And then the other, as you move into implementation, it takes time. Be prepared for that, budget it. We're all busy. This is not our primary role. but also you will become a subject matter expert, or whoever you have tasked with implementing this will become a subject matter expert, both in the software, but in process improvement, in development review softwares, but also, kind of database management. So if you're not going to be that subject matter expert with this software, coordinate with who is, let them know that this is going to be a piece of their job and expectations around that. Understand and explain the limitations. So there's going to be things that, as you go with project management, sometimes at the end of the thing, you're trying to land this plane and you are chucking luggage to get this thing on the ground. The needs to have and nice to have. There's going to be somebody along the way that says, oh my God, it would be amazing if it could do this. And that software will not be able to do that ever. And explain that to people. The limitations, the resources, or wow, we will get there right, next, but we just need to get this thing off the ground and launched. So again, can it wait? And explain that to people as part of that change management. It's expectation management as well. Wow, this was going to solve, I was promised this was going to solve everything. No, it won't. And there's always going to be some level of frustration with it. Be prepared for that. And that will also help those people adopt it and, engage with that software as it goes forward. And sometimes there's little quirks in the software. These things are written by people, and like I said, you'll run into a thing of like, why does it do that? Well, sometimes the answer is, why? That's why. So just be prepared for that. And with that, so my, overall, I would say the biggest frustration I have in my own experience, and I'll wrap things up and move it on to the next presenters, is reporting in Acela. That for me, I came from a system with eTrackIt where I could write my own advanced report by clicking, the fields that I wanted back and returned. In Acela, it's based on Crystal reports, which again is a whole code language. At some point, I hope it becomes a dead code language, but at this point, it's still around. And it makes it very hard to, I have reports that were written for me by previous implementation, and I can't trust the data. I know that the data is not correct. And so that's part of the money that we are getting from DOLA, is to be able to pay our vendor to write the code properly to report the data back. But look at that when you are doing this of like, how much do I need to pay somebody else to do something? Or if you're like, God, if you want something done right, you want to do it yourself, keep that in mind as you move forward with, whatever that is. And then that interchange between applicants and, is it just, you have a software where it is application intake and then you download it and now it lives on your, shared drives or your network, and you're just doing everything else outside of that system. And now you're emailing the applicants their review comments back, or is it intended to live, review comments get uploaded back into that system, applicants go and get that from there. That's what I had before. I would like to get back there again because I found that much easier, especially for tracking, when you get new planners or people taking on new cases. Where was this at? What happened? Well, they don't have access to that former planner's email. So, those are the things that, keep in mind. And, with that, we'll make our system better. But frankly, at this point, I would say Acela is one of the more frustrating experiences that I've had. But with that, I'll stop sharing and go off mute. And thank you for the time.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Next up, we have Jana Easley from the city of Wheat Ridge.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to stop sharing yours.
I just stopped sharing.
Yep, I got it. Okay. I'm going to throw this up here. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. All right, let's go to, can you see that?
Can you make it full screen? It's a little hard to read.
Yeah, I'll make it full screen. Okay. Can y'all see that?
Better,
Yes.
Okay, is it in a weird presenter mode or?
No, just the table.
Okay, good, good. All right, thanks. All right, so we are transitioning from ADG to OpenGov, and I want to give you a little bit of background. We started this process in September of 2022, so I've been with the city about a year. I wasn't here in the very initial discussions, but we're currently using ADG for building permitting software. And we've had a bunch of issues with functionality, ease of use, ability to create workflows, project management, and also reporting. And so we looked at 5 software options. And I came in, like I said, kind of in the middle of all this. But we were looking at OpenGov, SmartGov, Tyler, Cassell, and Central Square. Some of our key objectives included enhancing integration between our modules. So I'll talk about that here in a second. Improved capabilities, increased productivity, and an intuitive public-facing portal. We also needed increased efficiency and enhanced safety measures within the system. We were looking for something that had GIS integration, plan review capability, and also offered a mobile app. And also a solution that integrated our land use and permitting processes primarily for the users within our community development department. So entitlements, land use applications, permitting, building permits, contractor licensing, and then also code enforcement and licensing. So we ended up choosing OpenGov for a number of reasons. It integrates with Bluebeam for plan review, which was a key element for us. Another really big decision factor was that there was we went between 2 in the end, and we were kind of comparing them. One of the reasons that we chose OpenGov was because it doesn't have a file size limit for applicant uploads. And that was extremely important to us because, as some of you know, the file sizes can be really, really large sometimes when you're getting in plan sets. We also felt that the customer portal was much more intuitive. And what we're going to do is have a division of labor for implementing the software. So staff are going to be trained and take ownership of their individual modules. There's also a ticketing portal that they use, and faster response times are promised. We'll see how it goes. We haven't, had any support tickets yet because we haven't really got it up and running. But that was something with ADG that we've had a lot of trouble with. And then reducing redundancy. So in the slide, you can kind of see the comparison between the various items that we were looking at. The ADG, the customer portal, is really difficult for customers to navigate. And they also only have a contractor portal, not a portal for homeowners. With OpenGov, it's going to be easier for customers to navigate that front end. It's simple and intuitive. It can involve any users that we choose for it to use. And then the customers can apply directly into the system and upload and that sort of thing. The plan review interface with ADG, it didn't have one. Typically, counter staff were having to hand enter the permit application information into the system. And then the individual plan reviewers were providing separate red lines. We were using Bluebeam already, but we were providing separate red lines back to the applicant because we didn't have the Bluebeam where everybody could be in it at once. And then there was no way to track reviews or the versions of the plan that were in the system. On OpenGov, it will allow customers to apply directly within the system, integrates with Bluebeam, keeps track of the versions and plans, and then we can have concurrent review and instant feedback to customers. The automated workflow was really, really important because, again, a lot of our time has been wasted on redundant processes and people hand entering and using emails and using Dropbox and using a spreadsheet to manually track when a submittal is received and returned to an applicant. And so with OpenGov, it will automate our workflow, which should cut down a huge amount of time just for staff entering and emailing and that sort of thing. It also sets reminders for due dates. It notifies reviewers of overdue reviews. And we can easily change the workflows within the system to accommodate expedited reviews. Or anything else, we can change our workflows ourselves. So it's something that as the individual module owners of the system, we can be flexible and adaptable. And then we can easily add or remove users who have a direct interface with the system. We right now, we're not a full service city, so we have two fire districts, several water and sanitation districts. We'll be able to add those users in to have their own basically portal of their own that they can enter, comments into and that sort of thing. The reporting that we have now is very limited. There's a lot of reports in there, but they're difficult to create. And then you have to, on many of them, you have to manually manipulate the spreadsheet that it exports and extract what information you need. The OpenGov, it appears to have a robust reporting feature and you can create custom reports fairly easily. Again, the ADG has a very limited scope. It's basically just our permitting and contractor licensing. There's no entitlement, land use application, module licensing, or code enforcement. And with OpenGov, it's a complete system. So we can have one place for all of our property records, including licensing, code enforcement action, and that sort of thing. ADG had a slow response system, and it's very, very difficult to modify the system. So you kind of get what you get, and beyond that, you don't have any ability to customize it, except for some of the reporting, but it's really, really difficult. The OpenGov has or should have an efficient ticketing system, and then they've said with a 24-hour or less response time. And then on the time, our entitlements now, this is the key feature, and why once we got notice of our grant award, we were just super excited, because right now, even though we're pretty efficient, we have really good systems in place, and even though there's redundancy, I would say that our plan review is as expedited as it can get at this point. And on one of a recent affordable housing project, it took about 9 to 10 months for the land use applications process. That included a site plan, a plat, and a rezoning. Those were basically overlapped. We did overlapping reviews and everything to get it as expedited as possible, and then another 4 months approximately for the building permit. We are expecting a savings of at least 25%, cutting that down to hopefully as little as 6 months, and maybe even less than that, and then 3 months for the building permitting side of things. And this will be for all types of reviews. So even if we need to, we can set the system up so where we can even more expedite the reviews. And this will be really important, when trying to meet our expedited review, of course. So, but through the efficiencies and workflows, the consolidated red lines, and then just the manual labor, cut down on that, and reminders, we really think that this will help us out a lot in getting all of our land use cases and building permitting and other features such as licensing and code enforcement much more efficient. So again, we started the process in September of 2022. So we're about 18 months into it. We had tentatively selected OpenGov in early 2024 after interviewing 5 software providers throughout 2023. We started, once we tentatively selected OpenGov, we started really in more detail creating our workflows within each division's process, and that's ongoing. We started at a higher level with the sticky notes, put that into, I can't remember what we used, it might have been Visio, but put that into kind of a flow chart. And then we're working through each of the more detailed processes now. Once the grant was solidified, the contract was signed in April of 2024, and we're expecting a 9 to 10 month setup process. And so hopefully by early next year, it should be up and running. We know it's not going to be perfect, and so we're keeping ADG on for 1 year so that we will have the redundant systems running in place. because the ones that are open in ADG now, we will complete through ADG, and then the new ones will go into OpenGov. And so we're hoping by the second or third year, we will have all of the kinks worked out. And so that's really where I'm at, and I'm happy to answer questions later on. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to Marcy. Let's see. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. That was great. Marcy, are you ready to? I don't know if you have, I think you said you don't have slides.
I don't have slides.
Go right ahead then.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marcy Yoder, and I'm the Neighborhood Services Manager at the City of Fort Collins. And you may wonder why I am the one presenting from Fort Collins when we're talking about development review and housing plans and all those kinds of things. But the reason is that the city here is also going through an RFP process to find a new vendor of choice, code compliance, and our new rental registration program is under my purview. So I sit on that core committee and have been a part of that since the kind of beginning of that process. We just finished 3 solid weeks of vendor demonstrations. So 3 different vendors for 4 days each. And a lot of what you've already heard from me, I could say rinse and repeat. For the city of Fort Collins, the reason that we're looking at a new system is that our legacy system was an on-prem system that we've had for, 15 to 20 years. We've customized it to death. Every update breaks it. It's some of the things that you have heard from other presenters. So it really was time for us to say, okay, what do we need? How are we going to make that work? Our intent was to find a vendor who could do licensing, not only contractor licensing, but our marijuana and alcohol licensing. Our rental registration will fall there. Our permitting for buildings, all that kind of good stuff. Our development review process, our code enforcement process. And as we've rolled out this program, it's really surprising how many different parts of the city it will actually touch. Our engineers are looking at small cell permitting, just right away, a whole bunch of stuff that is currently not on our current platform, but we recognize the need to get all of those things together in one place rather than having all of these random systems. So we also put together kind of drivers of change. How are we going to evaluate that we're getting all of our needs met along with a bazillion functional requirements? But the biggest drivers of change were around customer experience, our own in the back office for the people who use the product, the visibility from department to department to have one kind of single source of truth on a single platform. So we all had access to the same information, a set of robust tools that increased our functionality, allowed for workflows that were easy to utilize, also easy to modify, change as new regulations came into place, or if we needed to do something very specialized in a certain case. And then also the customer experience from our community facing side, right? A portal that allowed for people to find what they needed, was intuitive, got them to the right place. And also a system that would capture all of the communication back and forth. So we didn't have like what's in the system and then a bunch of random email stuff sitting in who knows inbox that related to projects. And then there were just a whole set of, we lack XYZ, you fill in the blank. You can imagine what those things were. And so out of those demos, I'm not at liberty to share names with you all at this point, but once our vendor selection is finalized, I would be happy for anybody who's going through a similar process to chat. But some of the keys that I picked up on in our vendor demos, and there were 2 in particular that are like neck and neck in our selection process. But the citizen portals that they presented to us already had decision-making or wizards, that kind of functionality in them. So it feels more like what you experience in a retail experience when you're looking for something, or you've got chatbots that are helping guide you through a process. Several of them had that. Reporting and analytics were the other thing that really popped out in these demos. The two vendors that we're considering both have Power BI dashboards, which for a person at my level, it's super easy to see what's going on with your team, track trends, understand the data and information in a very different way, and not have to wait for reports to be generated. It's right there on my dashboard every day. It also has dashboards set up for the particular user that helps them track their own workflows, what's due, when it's due, what's past due, where it's at in the process. Lots of really cool pieces there. Several of them, the dashboards you clicked on, and it drilled down into the actual raw data if you needed to figure out, so why is this happening here? So that was really intriguing and exciting. Having industry standard workflow templates as a basis to start our own workflow configuration, and staying away from then having to customize things. We've made a commitment to organizational change as a part of this process. And we've also made a commitment to analyzing our business processes. And rather than just saying, this is what we currently do and we want the new system to do it, to really look at those industry standards and say, how should we be doing our work? Why should we be doing it that way? And how does this particular platform and tool help us to do that? All of them had integrations, APIs already written to some of the major electronic plan review platforms like Bluebeam or DigiPlan. One vendor in particular was really intriguing to me because they had worked with a customer who had government guidelines that were very prescriptive for their development review. So thinking about what's coming up with making sure our affordable housing projects go through the pipeline in a timely manner. There were a lot of parallels there. They set up the statuses in that workflow to be able to track the time in each stage, including the time that it was in the city's hand, the time that it was in the developer's hands, the times that it came back to city, developer, and back and forth. So you could see all of that information, and it was almost like an opportunity to keep track of all that kind of stuff moving forward. Yeah, I think those were my notes that I wanted to share today. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcy. It sounds like we'll have to reach out to you in a few weeks when you're allowed to divulge what the selected vendor is. I do want to hand it over to Jace, and just a time check. We'll hear from Montrose and then move to some Q&A in general. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. And I'm recognizing my time, so I will keep this brief and keep my eye on the clock here. But just as a quick intro, I'm Jace Hockwalt. I'm the Community Development Director here for the City of Montrose. I've been here for about 2 years, and then before that, I was actually at the City of Grand Junction. So I see some colleagues from GJ, and I'll just say go Western Slope. I'm happy to represent on the call here. One thing I'll mention, so I've worked and interned for a number of jurisdictions, really ranging in size, and I've seen my fair share of good and bad permitting systems through my time as a planner. In Montrose, we currently have a software. I'm not going to mention the name because I don't need a defamation letter on my desk next week, but overall, it really does lack efficiency and just doesn't fit our needs from a small town perspective. So I'm guessing there's other jurisdictions on this call that maybe are feeling the same thing. So we applied for the LPC grants and received it. And our goal with that was to implement a full-blown new software program and get away from our existing one. So we're in the early stages of that. We've demoed a number of solutions and narrowed it down to just a few choices based on internal discussions and some grading scales that we've kind of set based on our priorities. One thing I'll jump into is just kind of the pros and cons of our current system. Frankly, there's not a whole lot of pros, but one of those is the reporting. It is actually good that we have kind of a seamless reporting system, or I should say somewhat seamless, that's pretty easy to modify to produce reports. And granted, I don't do a whole lot of that, but our building technician is generally fairly pleased with that process. And that's something that we'll carry into a new program. But the cons, there's really a number of them. The biggest issue that I see and our planner sees as well is that our system really just acts as redundant storage. It's not cloud-based, so it can be slow. It doesn't have a public interface, so all applications are currently submitted in person or via email, which can be tedious, needless to say. And then the plan and project review component just doesn't allow for other agencies to comment directly in the software. So what we're doing is sending out kind of multiple emails for each project review with attached documents that is extremely tedious to track and just tedious to manage at the same time. So all in all, again, it kind of comes down to those redundancies that we recognize just need to be streamlined so we can be more functional and efficient. Again, kind of the user-friendly nature of our current programming is fairly minimal. It's solely used by staff. So we're excited to look at a product that's going to have a public interface that is more streamlined so applicants can submit online. We're a small shop here in Montrose. We have one planner, we've got one building permit technician, and we've got one building official. And so with a small staff, we really need to save as much time as we can where we can. And a new permitting system is certainly going to help that. So what we want to see is a seamless development review process where redundancies are going to be eliminated or at least reduced, and limit those emails that go out, and then just provide efficiency for our review agencies when it comes to actual review of projects. And then I'll just conclude. I know my time's pretty limited here, but so I've worked for a number of jurisdictions, like I mentioned, really between the size of like 5,000 people and 400,000 people. And what I've learned kind of working with those jurisdictions is that some software solutions work great for big cities that just don't work for smaller towns. And it's just as simple as that. If it's easier for me to just walk down the hall or even to another building to talk to our city engineer or our building official about a project review or a potential issue, I'm likely just going to walk over instead of going through the actual system to kick out some notification or something like that to discuss it. That's just streamlined for us. That said, you know, when you have a small staff and a growing community with increased pressure on housing developments, efficiencies need to be found. And so that's really the goal of what we're looking at is limiting our staff planner. Again, we have one staff planner in a population of about 25,000 that's growing. I don't necessarily want him to spend a quarter of his time just working through the steps of a permitting system that's redundant. So cutting down on that will actually help from a long range perspective with projects regarding housing policy or really other planning efforts. As we all know, I think you know, time is money for developers, and those in the public sector on this call likely have been on the other side of a phone call with a developer that's frustrated about their review being too long. So ultimately, I would hope that implementing a more efficient system will reduce that, although I recognize that that will never be eliminated. So with that, hopefully that provides a little bit of time for some Q&A.
Great. Thank you to all of our speakers for sharing. I want to open it up to anyone that has a question. Please raise your hand or put it in the chat for any of our speakers. And also, if your community is experiencing similar challenges, or you're working on new software, or you like features that you currently have, please share with us. So while we open it up, Lisa, are you also going to share the poll so that people can weigh in on future topics for next month, just in case people have to jump off the call early. All right, any questions? Use the Q&A or the chat.
Hi, everybody. This is Santa Costello. I work for the city of Grand Junction. Hey, Jace.
Hey, Santa.
Hey, and Marcy, I think I met with you earlier this year to discuss your RFPs that you were trying to figure out where you were headed next. So it's good to see you again as well. The question that I have is, in December of last year, we did an update to our review system that has resulted in the inability of our outside review agencies, such as our water districts, et cetera, to have access to our review system as they did previously due to security issues. The review process for them was moved internal to the software. Prior, they had a kind of a satellite that integrated then into the back office software. And it's all now been pulled into the main software. And due to security reasons of that now being behind our firewall, our outside review agencies no longer have access. Our IT folks will not permit them out or as an outside non-network user into our software. And I didn't know if anybody has run into that, and if so, how have you dealt with it? Is there a software anybody has run into that facilitates that being able to happen? We're kind of trying to figure out, do we stay with our current software? Do we look at moving on to something else? Is there some kind of in-between something that would be able to be utilized? So we're kind of just looking for any insights that anybody may have.
I can go ahead and hop in here. So from our current experience with Acela, Golden, we don't have a lot of outside referral agencies, so it's not really an issue. When I was with Littleton and eTrackit, there was a referral portal that basically they had their own logins and could move forward with that. From a sales perspective, they didn't need licenses necessarily to access those. We managed kind of user credentials on the admin side of things. But there was always that risk, as these are businesses, that they might have started to move towards a realizing some value there in the future of now requiring paid licenses for referral agencies. So that wasn't in place at the time, but something on the horizon that was definitely floated from a, hey, just a FYI, the sales guys might get creative at some point. So that was our solution there. It was allowed that referral response in the system, but that was our thing. Otherwise, yeah, workarounds through file sharing or other things. That's I feel like how most people deal with it. But if other people have.
We use Bluebeam for the markups, and that's working well. It's just being able to provide written comments directly into the system. They're not able to access, and they used to be able to, which was it worked really well. And now we've gone back 15 years and they're emailing us their written comments. And
so Senta, if you do move forward with looking for a different product, I don't have an answer to your current solution. But the demos that we did, that was one of the things that we also asked, because our fire department is separate from us, and two of the water district, we have two water districts besides our own inside of city limits. And those products were able to accommodate that.
Okay.
Most commonly through the citizens portal, and the way that they were able to access files through, as the developer or the builder, that portal into our system in a secure manner and back out. So happy to chat offline with you about that.
Cool. I may shoot you an email or give you a call.
You bet.
Thank you.
And we have Jared from Carbondale.
I think this is a question for probably couple of you, but maybe more focused on Jace. Carbondale's pretty small as well, and often it's easier for me to walk to the next office over to talk to our public works director, or 2 offices down to talk to our building official. How have you guys managed kind of the data input into your systems when that's kind of the reality? You know, highlighting what Carl has spoken about earlier, you know, kind of bad information in means bad information out when you're doing reporting and tracking timelines and stuff like that. How do you kind of ensure that you're keeping
Yeah.
in so that the system actually functions and it doesn't just become a shell for building permit inspection tracking? It actually is more functional for planning and you know, community development as a whole.
Yeah, no, great question. And as it stands now, our planner, you know, our single planner is kind of the sole project manager for a majority of projects when it comes to the plan review side. On the building side, it's our building official that's basically inputting comments. And again, inputting comments on behalf of others, more or less, in those systems. And so it is a shell. Our current system is, and the goal moving forward is to eliminate that. Luckily, we have a ton of buy-in. I think that's something Carl mentioned on the front end. Our staff here, although some have been here for 20 plus years, are interested in transitioning over to a new system, which is not always the case. And finding a system where those individual people, even if there is those communication lines that happen in the hallway or just in offices, that person can easily go in, whoever it might be, your city engineer, whoever, and just put in that quick comment just as a follow-up or kind of a confirmation to keep the report flowing, just to keep everything kind of fairly seamless. So I think the big thing is buy-in to try to to make that happen and have those individuals actually input things themselves and not require, you know, a project manager or project lead to do it for them. But it's a struggle, and it's a struggle for every small jurisdiction I've been at. Something to kind of work through, and hopefully you got good relationships over there as well.
I want to, before we hit the top of the hour, I just want to give a quick moment. Mitch, could you share with us what the plan is for next month's topic?
Sure thing. And it looks like we responded pretty well to the poll. 48% of you said you wanted to hear about partnership strategies. So June 20th, we will be speaking about housing authorities, and I'm looking to got 2 speakers lined up so far and about to line up a 3rd from housing authorities around the state, new and old, to kind of speak to the processes of setting them up and maintaining kind of a healthy business model to keep them successful moving forward. So we're really looking forward to that. We know there's a lot of interest in housing authorities and new ones being setting up, and just interest in them as far as expanding existing services. So please stay tuned, but we will be hosting that on June 20th, the same time on a Thursday. And I look forward to seeing you all again. Back to you, Robin.
All right. And we might lose folks at the top of the hour if they have to jump to another meeting, but we can stick around a few more minutes for those who want to keep asking questions or sharing. So I'll stick around. Anybody else have a question they wanted to ask? MJ, go ahead.
Question is, I know that you know, anyone who signed up for Proposition 123 commitments has some obligations in terms of doing some reporting in terms of how many new units we've created by 2026. Is the state anywhere in providing some guidance in terms of what you'll be looking for us to be reporting in and how we might build it into our software systems?
I have to say it's still coming soon. I'm hoping later this summer we will actually have that guidance for you. I know we keep promising it, but the process has begun. We're just not quite there. And I believe we'll be asking for some stakeholder input through that process. So we'll be sure to let you all know as soon as we're ready to convene some stakeholders. So yeah, any other thoughts? I mean, in the meantime, we can sort of chat about it one-on-one, but any other thoughts or questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, thank you very much to today's presenters for making time for this and sharing your perspective. Best of luck for successful implementation with all of you. And I will end the recording and we'll be sharing with the registered folks for those who couldn't attend. And if our presenters don't mind, we'll share some contact info as well so people can reach out to you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone. Really
Have a lovely
appreciate
rest
you
of your
helping us
day.
on our first session. Thanks again.